Stupid Beta hit pregnant Omega 34 times without knowing. Then the powerful Alpha King protects her. Mist slithered between crooked cottages, curling around wooden fences like living spirits. In this village, life moved slowly, almost as if the world outside had forgotten them. People whispered of old magic in the forests, of curses that could twist the fate of the innocent. Lyria and Omega moved quietly along the cobblestone paths, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders. She was known in the village for her gentle nature and quiet smile, but few knew the truth. Lyria's blood carried a mark older than the village itself, a mark of ancient royalty hidden in the folds of time. She had never thought it mattered, and she had certainly never expected it to find her now. It was the night of the Moon Festival, a rare event when villagers gathered in the central square to celebrate the full moon. Lanterns swung from wooden posts, their flames flickering like tiny stars. Music floated in the air, soft flutes, distant drums, and the laughter of children chasing shadows. Lyria moved among the villagers, helping set out small offerings of food and flower garlands. She kept her distance from Kale, a young beta who had recently arrived in Eldrin Hollow. Kale was clumsy, often tripping over his own feet, but there was something earnest about him that made people forgive his awkwardness. Kale was trying to help a group of children light lanterns when he stumbled into Lyria. His elbow brushed her arm and a spark of light, soft, almost imperceptible, flickered between them. Neither noticed at first, but the air shifted. The wind dropped, leaving a heavy silence, and Lyria's heart skipped a beat. She looked into Kale's eyes, and for a moment, something strange and powerful passed between them, something neither could understand. Lyria laughed nervously, brushing off the feeling. "Careful," she said softly. "You might start a fire with that clumsiness." Kale's cheeks flushed, and he mumbled an apology, but deep inside he felt the same strange pull she had, the lingering warmth of something ancient, hidden and unspoken. Neither spoke of it further, and soon the festival drew them apart. That night, as the village slept, the full moon reached its zenith, and the forest around Eldrin Hollow seemed to come alive. Shadows moved with purpose, and an ancient magic stirred. Somewhere deep in the mountains, a power long dormant awoke. Lyria slept, unaware that the bond between her and Kale had done more than spark curiosity. It had awakened a chain of events written in prophecy, events that would change her life forever. The next morning, Lyria awoke with a strange heaviness in her chest. She felt different, though she could not say why. The villagers, usually quiet and kind, avoided her gaze. Whispers followed her wherever she went. "She carries something," one elder muttered, voice trembling. "Something old and dangerous." Lyria's confusion grew. She had done nothing to deserve suspicion. Yet every step she took, every glance she gave, was met with caution or fear. Kale approached her later that day, his hands wringing nervously. "Lyria, I don't understand," he stammered. Something happened last night. I don't know what. Did you feel it too?" Lyria looked at him, searching for answers in his worried eyes. I felt something," she admitted, "but I don't know what it means." Kale hesitated, then lowered his voice. I think it's more than we know. The elders, they say this kind of bond, it's rare, dangerous." Lyria's heart pounded. "Dangerous for me?" Kale nodded. "For you, for all of us, maybe." She wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but fear held her tongue. There was a tension in the air she could not name, a sense that unseen eyes watched her every move. And then, without warning, a chill swept through the village. Lanterns flickered, fires hissed, and the mist from the mountains crept closer, curling around the cottages like a living thing. From the edge of the forest, a figure emerged. Tall, imposing, and radiating authority, he moved with the quiet certainty of one who commanded the very elements. His eyes were like molten gold, piercing through the haze and locking onto Lyria. The villagers fell silent, instinctively bowing or retreating. Even Kale stepped back, his hands trembling. Who is that?" Lyria whispered, clutching her shawl. Kale's voice faltered. They say he is the Alpha King, Ravian, the one who protects the innocent and punishes the guilty. The Alpha King, Ravian, moved closer, each step deliberate and controlled. He looked at Lyria as though she were both precious and fragile, as though her very presence had drawn him across the mountains. Lyria felt an inexplicable pull, a mix of fear, awe, and something deeper she could not name. Ravian stopped a few paces from her, his gaze steady and intense. "You are marked," he said, his voice low, resonant, and commanding. "The bond has awakened. You do not yet understand its power, but there are those who would see it used against you." The villagers murmured, fear and reverence mixing in their tones. Lyria's heart raced. "Marked? What does it mean?" "It means your life is no longer yours alone," Ravian replied. "There are forces that will come for you. You are precious and in danger." Kale stepped forward, voice shaking. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't know." Ravian's gaze swept over him briefly, assessing, judging, yet not condemning. "Intent matters little. The bond is awakened and its consequences cannot be undone. You must both prepare." Lyria's mind spun. "Prepare for what?" Ravian's golden eyes softened slightly, though the intensity remained. "For those who will seek to use you, for the prophecy that now stirs, and for the power that sleeps within you." Even as he spoke, shadows stirred in the mist. Shapes moved with unnatural grace, eyes glinting with hunger and malice. The villagers shrank back, some screaming, others fleeing into their homes. Ravian's aura flared, a protective barrier radiating outward. The shadows recoiled, hissing, before retreating into the forest. Lyria shivered, both from cold and from the realization of what had begun. Kale looked at her, guilt and fear mingling in his expression. "I'll do whatever it takes," he whispered. Ravian turned his gaze back to Lyria. "You will need more than intentions," he said. "You will need strength, guidance, and allies. I will protect you for now. But the path ahead is treacherous." The villagers whispered behind her back, fear and awe tangled in every glance. Lyria felt a strange mixture of dread and relief. For the first time, she sensed that her life was entwined with forces far greater than her own understanding. She looked at Kale, then at Ravian, and realized that her world had changed forever. Night fell again, and Lyria could not sleep. Outside, the wind carried whispers through the trees, hints of the danger to come. Kale sat nearby, silent, guilt etched on his face. And Ravian, the Alpha King, remained at the edge of the village, a guardian and an enigma, his golden eyes watching over her. Somewhere deep in the forest, ancient magic stirred. The bond was alive. The prophecy was awake. And the life growing within Lyria was more than just a child. It was a spark of power that would shift the fate of kingdoms. As the first rays of dawn touched the misty village, Lyria felt both fear and determination rise within her. She did not yet know how to face what was coming, but she knew that survival would require courage, trust, and choices that could never be undone. And from the shadows, eyes watched her, waiting for the moment when fear and power would collide. The journey had begun. Cliffhanger, Lyria's hand instinctively touched her belly, sensing the life within, and for the first time she understood the full weight of the bond. Somewhere in the mountains, Ravian's gaze followed her, unwavering. But a distant, dark figure moved closer in silence, unseen, plotting the first strike against the Omega who carried the kingdom's fate. The sun rose slowly over Eldrin Hollow, casting long golden rays across the misted village. Lyria woke to the quiet hum of the forest and the distant call of birds. Sleep had been restless, haunted by shadows she could not name. Something within her stirred, a growing awareness of the life she carried. She pressed a hand to her belly, a mixture of fear and awe washing over her. Kale waited outside her small cottage, pacing nervously. His hands were clenched, and the worry etched on his face mirrored her own. "Lyria," he said softly when she stepped out, I don't know what to do. The elders, the villagers, they're afraid of you. And he trailed off, guilt clouding his voice. Lyria sighed, trying to calm the storm in her chest. "I know," she said, "but we have to figure this out. I can't run from it forever." Before Kale could respond, a shadow fell over the village square. The air shifted, and a soft wind carried the scent of the mountains. Ravian, the Alpha King, emerged from the forest with his usual quiet authority. His presence alone drew the villagers into a respectful silence. "You should not wander alone," Ravian said to Lyria, his golden eyes scanning the horizon. "There are forces that watch, waiting for weakness." Lyria nodded, trying to steady her voice. "I understand. But I cannot stay hidden forever." Ravian's gaze softened, though his intensity never faded. "You are stronger than you know," he said, "but strength alone will not be enough. Knowledge, allies, and caution are your true weapons." Kale swallowed hard, feeling smaller and less capable in Ravian's imposing presence. I want to help," he said. "I'll do whatever I can." Ravian regarded him silently for a moment. "Intent matters," he said finally, "but actions will determine the outcome. You must understand your limitations. Protecting her will require more than good intentions." As they spoke, a chill swept through the village, raising goosebumps on Lyria's arms. From the forest edge, shapes began to emerge, dark, indistinct forms moving with unnatural speed. They circled the village, whispering threats that chilled the bones. Ravian stepped forward, and the air around him seemed to pulse with invisible power. The dark forms recoiled at his presence, hissing and twisting in the shadows. Lyria felt the warmth of his aura wrap around her, a shield of safety and power. Even Kale, standing nearby, felt the difference between himself and the Alpha King. "They are drawn to the bond," Ravian said quietly. "They sense its power. If they reach you, the consequences will be dire." Lyria's heart pounded. "I don't even know what I'm carrying," she whispered. "How can they want it?" "Because it is not ordinary," Ravian replied. "It is a spark of destiny. And destiny always draws attention, both good and evil." The shadows retreated back into the forest, but the village remained tense. The villagers spoke in hushed tones, fear lingering in every glance. Lyria's thoughts raced. She realized that the world she had known, the quiet village, her simple life, was gone. She was now part of something vast, dangerous, and beyond her understanding. Over the next days, Ravian stayed close. He guided Lyria through the forest, teaching her how to sense and protect herself. He showed her places to hide and ways to move unseen. Kale tried to help, but every action reminded him of his own fragility and lack of power. He watched as Ravian handled threats with a calm precision that left Lyria both in awe and hesitant fear. Yet, amidst the tension, moments of quiet connection arose. One evening, as the three sat by a fire in a hidden glade, Ravian spoke softly to Lyria. "You carry more than life within you," he said. "You carry potential. Do not fear it, but do not underestimate the danger either." Lyria looked at him, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can do this. I feel so small, so powerless." "You are not powerless," he said, his voice steady. "The strength lies not only in physical power, but in courage, wisdom, and resilience. You have all three." Kale listened silently, admiration and envy mixing in his heart. He wanted to protect her, to prove himself worthy, but he felt inadequate next to Ravian. Still, he refused to step back completely. I'll learn," he said. "I'll do whatever it takes." Ravian's gaze met his briefly. "Learn, yes. But remember, protection comes from more than effort. It comes from understanding the forces around you and knowing when to step aside." Days turned into weeks, and the presence of danger became a constant shadow. Dark creatures, drawn to the magical bond, skulked in the forests, testing boundaries and searching for openings. Ravian faced them with an unflinching calm, his power a steady shield. Lyria began to trust him more, leaning on his guidance even as her heart battled between gratitude, fear, and curiosity. One night, as the wind whispered through the trees, Kale and Lyria stood on a ridge overlooking the valley. Lyria touched her belly, feeling a flutter that reminded her of the life growing within. "I never asked for this," she said softly. "I don't even know who I'm supposed to be in all of this." Kale's voice trembled. "But you're not alone, not anymore. I'll stand by you. I'll learn, I'll protect you too." Lyria looked at him, but before she could answer, a sudden scream pierced the night. From the village below, flames rose as dark figures attacked. Villagers ran in panic while the shadows moved with calculated precision, striking at homes and possessions. Ravian's eyes narrowed. "They have come closer. Lyria, stay behind me." Kale tried to step forward, but Ravian's hand stopped him. "You cannot help yet, trust me. Stay with her." With a roar, Ravian surged forward, golden light spilling from him like the dawn breaking a stormy night. Shadows shrieked and retreated, but the threat was far from gone. Lyria clung to Kale, her heart racing, as she watched the Alpha King move with terrifying grace and power, facing enemies she had never imagined. After the attack, the village lay in disarray. Smoke curled into the night sky and fear hung thick in the air. Lyria, Kale, and Ravian stood together on the ridge, surveying the destruction. "They will return," Ravian said quietly. "And next time they will come stronger. The bond is a beacon, and now you cannot hide. You must prepare, Lyria, for yourself and for the life you carry." Lyria's hands shook as she held her belly. I will try," she whispered. "I have to." Kale placed a hand over hers. "We'll face it together," he said, though he could not hide the doubt in his voice. Ravian's gaze swept the valley, golden eyes piercing the darkness. "You are marked, yes, but you are not without allies, and I will not let them take you, not while I stand." As the trio returned to the hidden glade, Lyria felt a strange mix of hope and dread. She realized that her life had irrevocably changed. She was no longer just a village girl. She was a part of a prophecy, a bond that could shift the balance of power in the kingdom. And with that knowledge came responsibility, fear, and a strange, growing trust in Ravian's protection. That night, as the wind whispered secrets through the trees, Lyria dreamed of the future. She saw flashes of shadowed figures, golden light, and the life she carried shining brightly in the center. She awoke with a start, feeling both vulnerable and determined. The bond within her pulsed, a quiet reminder of the danger and the power she now embodied. Ravian remained at the edge of the glade, a silent guardian, watching over her as she slept. Kale, though uncertain and anxious, stayed close, determined to prove that he could stand beside her in the trials to come. And somewhere in the dark forest, eyes watched them, waiting for the moment when fear and power would collide. The first strike had come, and the next would be closer, sharper, and impossible to ignore. Cliffhanger. As dawn broke, Ravian's gaze fell on the distant mountains where a figure cloaked in shadow observed them. Lyria stirred in her sleep, unaware that the next attack would not only test her survival, but challenge the bond that tied them all together. The days that followed the attack on Eldrin Hollow were tense and heavy. The villagers whispered in corners, fear etched into every word, every glance. Lyria moved cautiously through the streets, her hands cradling the life growing inside her. Even the morning sun could not lift the shadow that had settled over the village. Ravian remained close, a silent guardian who seemed to command the very air around him. His golden eyes were always watchful, and his presence alone kept the dark forces at bay. Kale walked beside Lyria, still awkward, still unsure, yet determined to prove his loyalty. Each step reminded him of his weakness, but he refused to falter. One evening, Ravian led Lyria and Kale to a hidden chamber deep beneath the forest. It was carved from stone, lit by flickering torches that cast dancing shadows on the walls. Ancient runes glimmered faintly, telling stories older than any living memory. "This place will keep you safe," Ravian explained. "But more importantly, it will teach you. The bond you carry is not ordinary. It is a spark of power that can change the balance of this kingdom." Lyria's hands trembled as she touched the glowing runes. I don't understand. How can I change anything? I'm just me. Ravian stepped closer, his voice calm yet commanding. You underestimate yourself. The life you carry is connected to the prophecy. It awakens forces both seen and unseen. You must learn or you will be powerless against those who seek to control it. Kale shifted uneasily. And what about me? I don't have power like yours, Ravian. I'm just a beta. You have courage, Ravian said, his gaze meeting Kale's. And sometimes courage is worth more than power, but you must understand your role. Do not act recklessly. Protect her, yes, but do not try to fight forces beyond your reach. Lyria felt the weight of their words. She had always relied on herself, yet now she was caught in a web of destiny far beyond her comprehension. Still, a spark of determination grew within her. She would survive. She would learn. She would protect the life inside her. That night as they rested in the chamber, a soft knock echoed from the entrance. Ravian's eyes narrowed, and he moved to the doorway. Kale and Lyria followed cautiously. Standing there was a figure they thought they could trust, Mara, a beta from the capital who had promised to aid them in navigating the dangers of prophecy and magic. Mara, Lyria asked, relief and surprise mingling in her voice. I didn't expect you. Mara smiled, but there was a coldness in her gaze that made Lyria shiver. I've come to help, she said softly, her words smooth and persuasive. There are ways to control the bond to protect yourself and your child. Ravian's golden eyes scrutinized Mara. Your intentions are unclear, he said. Explain why you've arrived uninvited. Mara's smile did not waver. The child is special, she said, her tone almost reverent. There are those who would use its power. I only wish to guide Lyria, to ensure it does not fall into the wrong hands. For days, Mara stayed with them, offering guidance and advice. She suggested strategies for concealment and whispered about ancient texts that could strengthen the bond within Lyria. Kale clung to every word, hoping her knowledge could help them. But slowly, Lyria began to notice subtle inconsistencies. Mara's gaze lingered too long on Lyria's belly. Her advice sometimes contradicted Ravian's instructions. And there were moments when Kale caught Mara speaking softly into the shadows of the forest, words that hinted at secrecy, not protection. One night, as a storm raged outside, Lyria awoke to find Mara gone from the chamber. The wind howled, rattling the stone walls, and the torchlight flickered wildly. A sudden realization struck her. Mara had lied. She had come not to protect, but to manipulate the bond for her own gain. Panic surged through Lyria. Kale, she whispered urgently, shaking him awake. Mara, she's not what she says. She's planning something. Kale's eyes widened, fear and disbelief flashing across his face. We have to tell Ravian. Before they could act, the door burst open, and Mara returned, flanked by shadowy figures from the forest. The trap was set. The room was suffused with dark energy, curling and twisting like smoke. Lyria instinctively placed a hand on her belly, feeling a protective warmth radiate from within, a spark of the power that had been awakening over the past weeks. Ravian stepped forward, his presence a blazing shield against the dark forces. You will not harm her, he said, his voice calm but deadly. The shadows recoiled as if struck by invisible force. Mara's eyes glinted with frustration. You cannot protect her forever, Alpha King. The bond is mine to command. You misunderstand, Ravian replied. The bond belongs to her, and she will decide how it is used. Lyria's heart pounded as she watched the confrontation. She had felt powerless for so long, but now, seeing Ravian's calm authority and the spark of life within her, she realized she had a choice. The power she carried was not just a curse, it was her strength. Mara struck first, sending a wave of shadowed energy toward Lyria. Instinctively, Lyria lifted her hands and a golden light erupted, shielding her from the attack. The force pushed Mara and her minions back, but it also left Lyria trembling from the effort. Kale stepped forward, trying to intercept the remaining shadows, but he was too slow. Ravian moved with terrifying precision, striking with bursts of golden energy that scattered their enemies. Lyria's heart raced, not just from fear, but from awe. She saw the extent of Ravian's power, his protective aura encompassing them all. Finally, Mara was driven back, her plans thwarted for now. She retreated into the stormy night, leaving the chamber and the forest silent once more. Lyria sank to the floor, breathless hands still cradling her belly. Cale knelt beside her, guilt and relief mingling in his expression. "You were incredible," he whispered. I couldn't do that." "You don't need to," Lyria said softly. "Ravian, he's protecting us." Ravian approached, his presence steadying the trembling Omega. "Protection is not enough," he said. "You must grow stronger. The bond is awakening faster than expected. Soon, those who seek to control it will return, and next time they will come with greater force." Lyria swallowed hard. I will learn. I will not be powerless." Ravian's gaze softened slightly. "Good, but remember, power is not just force. It is wisdom, courage, and the ability to make choices even when the path is unclear." Over the following days, Ravian taught Lyria to focus, to harness the spark within her. She learned to sense the presence of danger, to shield herself instinctively, and to trust her instincts. Cale practiced alongside her, though his movements were hesitant and flawed. Still, Ravian encouraged him, emphasizing that loyalty and courage could match strength in their own ways. Despite the training, tension remained. The prophecy's shadow lingered, and Mara's betrayal reminded them all that threats could come from anywhere, even those who claimed to be allies. Lyria began to understand the delicate balance of trust and vigilance required in this new world. One evening, as the sun dipped below the mountains, Ravian led Lyria and Cale to the cliffside overlooking Eldrin Hollow. The valley stretched below, mist curling around the cottages like fingers of a ghostly hand. "You must see," Ravian said, his voice low and commanding, "what you are protecting. The world will not wait for you to grow comfortable. Danger is constant, and your choices carry weight beyond your understanding." Lyria looked down at the village, the place she had once called home. Now it seemed fragile, small, and exposed, vulnerable to forces she had barely begun to comprehend. She placed her hand on her belly, feeling the spark within her respond to the wind and the energy around them. Cale's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. I'm scared." "I am too," Lyria admitted, "but I'm not alone. We have Ravian and we have each other." Ravian's golden eyes met hers. "Remember, Lyria, strength comes not from denial of fear but from facing it. You carry more than life within you, you carry hope. And hope is a force even the darkest magic cannot extinguish." As the sun vanished behind the peaks, shadows crept once more from the forest. Lyria shivered, knowing they were not gone. Mara's betrayal had been only the beginning. Dark forces waited, watching, planning. And the next encounter would test not only her strength but her trust, her courage, and the bond that tied them all together. Cliffhanger. A whispering wind carried a warning from the mountains. Lyria clutched her belly, sensing the presence of a new enemy approaching. A figure cloaked in shadow, more powerful and cunning than any they had faced before. The next challenge was coming, and it would strike at the heart of everything she held dear. The wind howled across the northern cliffs as Eldrin Hollow slept beneath a blanket of mist. Lyria stood at the edge of the hidden glade, her hands resting gently on her belly. The life within her stirred, responding to her heartbeat, and with it came a newfound strength she had never known. Ravian approached silently, his golden eyes reflecting the moonlight. "They are coming," he said, "stronger, faster. And this time their intent is clear, they will take what is yours." Lyria's heart raced. Fear had not left her entirely, but determination had taken root. "I won't let them," she said. I can't." Cale stepped forward, his hands shaking but resolute. "Neither will I," he said. "I've failed before, but I won't fail again. Not her, not the child." Ravian's gaze softened slightly. "You both have grown," he said, "but courage alone will not be enough. You must trust the bond within you, Lyria." It is more powerful than any enemy, more enduring than any shadow. From the mountains, dark shapes emerged, slipping silently through the forest. Mara had returned, stronger and more cunning, bringing with her a cadre of shadowed warriors drawn from the ancient forces of the land. The air thickened with magic, each heartbeat echoing with tension. Ravian moved with quiet authority, positioning himself between Lyria and the advancing darkness. His presence alone formed a shield, golden light flowing around him like a protective river. Kale stepped beside Lyria, uncertain but determined to stand his ground. Mara's voice rang out, cold and commanding. "The bond belongs to me. Surrender, Omega, and no harm will come to you." Lyria's hands instinctively moved to her belly. A warm glow radiated from her, spilling outward, pushing against the encroaching shadows. She realized then that she was not just a passive vessel, she was a force of her own. The bond within her responded to her emotions, her courage, and her will. Ravian's eyes widened slightly in approval. "Good, trust it." The first wave of shadowed warriors charged, claws glinting in the moonlight. Kale faltered for a moment, but Lyria placed her hand on his arm. "Focus," she whispered. "We can do this together." Ravian struck first, his golden light piercing the night. Shadows hissed and recoiled, unable to withstand his power. Lyria felt a surge of strength, the bond within her amplifying the energy around her. She extended her hands, and a wave of radiant light shot outward, scattering the remaining warriors. Kale, though still uncertain, found courage in their shared resolve. He leapt forward to aid Lyria, using small bursts of energy she had taught him to disrupt the shadows. Though imperfect, his efforts bought them precious moments. Mara, furious, surged toward them, her power dark and overwhelming. She struck the ground, and the earth trembled, sending waves of shadow toward Lyria. Lyria closed her eyes, focusing on the life inside her. A golden aura erupted from her, blinding and pure. The shadows dissolved as if touched by sunlight, and Mara was thrown back, staggering. "You cannot control it," Mara hissed, struggling to regain balance. "You cannot control me," Lyria said firmly, her voice steady. "This power is mine. It is our choice, not yours." Ravian moved to Mara's side, his presence a calm yet unstoppable force. "You see now," he said, "the bond belongs to her. Nothing you do can change that." With a final surge of energy, Lyria extended her hands, and Mara was enveloped in a radiant light. Her shadowed warriors disintegrated, leaving only the defeated Beta and the howling wind behind. Mara screamed, then vanished into the forest, her plans thwarted for the moment. The battlefield fell silent. The mist curled lazily around the trees, the forest holding its breath. Lyria sank to her knees, exhausted but alive. Kale knelt beside her, his hands shaking as he held hers. You did it," he whispered. Lyria smiled weakly, the golden glow around her fading. "We did it," she corrected. "Together." Ravian approached, his golden eyes soft with pride. "You have learned well, Lyria, courage, trust, and choice. These are the true strengths of the bond. You are no longer merely its vessel. You are its master." Kale looked at her, awe and admiration shining in his eyes. I never thought I could be part of something like this," he admitted. "But you've changed everything." Lyria placed a hand on his shoulder. "We've all changed," she said gently, "and we'll continue to grow, but we have to be ready. Mara is not gone forever. There will be more challenges." Ravian's gaze swept the horizon, alert and unwavering. "Yes," he said, "but tonight you have proven something important, not just to yourselves but to all who watch. You are not powerless, and together you can face whatever comes." The storm that had threatened the village cleared, leaving the stars glimmering above. Eldrin Hollow lay quiet, the villagers slowly emerging to survey the aftermath. Fear remained, but hope glimmered alongside it. The presence of the Alpha King and the courage of the Omega and Beta had restored faith, however small, in the hearts of the villagers. As the first light of dawn touched the valley, Lyria sat with Kale and Ravian, the golden glow of the bond lingering faintly around her. She realized that the life growing inside her was not a curse but a promise, a spark of power, hope, and renewal. Kale's hand rested over hers, steadying, grounding. I'm sorry for everything before, he said softly. I didn't understand, but now I understand. And I want to help. I want to protect you both. Lyria smiled, feeling a warmth beyond the bond she carried. You already have, she said. Even when you didn't know how, you tried. That matters more than you think. Ravian's voice, calm and commanding, carried a note of quiet pride. Redemption is not given, it is earned. Kale, you have earned it tonight. But remember, strength comes in many forms. Protecting, learning, trusting, all are part of it. Kale nodded, a new determination settling in his heart. Lyria, too, felt transformed. The fear that had once bound her was replaced by purpose. She was no longer a passive participant in destiny. She was an active force, a beacon of hope and power. The days that followed were quiet, but the lessons remained. Lyria trained with Ravian, honing her connection to the bond, while Kale worked tirelessly to strengthen himself. Together, they became a trio bound not only by circumstance but by trust, loyalty, and emerging affection. One evening, as they stood on the cliff overlooking Eldrin Hollow, Lyria placed her hand on her belly, feeling the life inside respond to her heartbeat. We've come so far, she whispered. Ravian's golden eyes met hers, steady and unwavering. Yes, he said, and yet this is only the beginning. The bond is strong, but the world beyond this village will test it further. You must remain vigilant, but for tonight, rest. You have earned it. Kale stood beside her, a quiet smile on his face. I'll be here, he said, always. Lyria looked at him, then at Ravian, feeling a profound sense of connection. The fear, the uncertainty, the betrayal, they had all forged something stronger than any shadow could destroy. They were no longer just individuals thrown into fate's cruel game. Together they were a force, a family bound by choice, courage, and the bond that would shape the future. The sun rose over Eldrin Hollow, painting the village in gold and silver. Life, fragile yet resilient, continued. And though the shadow of Mara and other forces lingered in the distance, Lyria knew one truth above all. She was no longer powerless. She was a mother, a guardian, and a force that even destiny itself would respect. Ravian's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. Tonight you have proven that even in darkness light can rise. Remember that, always. Lyria nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She looked at Kale, then at the horizon, and whispered, We are ready for whatever comes next. The wind carried a quiet promise through the valley, a promise of trials, growth, and transformation. And in that moment, surrounded by allies and strengthened by the bond within her, Lyria understood the truth of her destiny. She would face the future not with fear, but with courage, hope, and love. And somewhere in the distant mountains, shadows stirred, observing, waiting, but they would find no weakness. For the Omega, the Beta, and the Alpha King stood united, stronger than any prophecy, ready to shape their own fate.